So a little bit about myself. My name is Charles Washington. I'm an adjunct part-time counselor in general counseling. I work with the Brothers of the Brotherhood. You guys can hear me cool? Good? All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what we call, it's actually a new term in the DSM-5, which is called complex trauma. So I am very Afrocentric in my approach. So I like a call and response. I do not want to stand here and talk to you or talk at you. I'm going to ask you to participate as well. We good with that?
Yes.
Thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit about, I'll start off with a little bit about myself, and then I'll tell you a little bit about trauma and complex trauma. And then we're going to tie it all in to how we are seeing it manifest today. Especially, so my practice has been working with young people, mainly, primarily African American and Latino men of color. So I'm a mental health therapist. I work at McClemens High School full time, and I've been a therapist now for about 8 years, primarily working in Oakland Public Schools. I was the head therapist for a group home in West Oakland. Done all that kind of work, worked a lot with AIDS patients and a lot of people who have experienced trauma. So, with that being said, we'll go into what is complex trauma. So complex trauma is, again, it's now a diagnosis, an actual DSM diagnosis, in which young people who have experienced life-altering experiences, which literally like shapes or rocks their very core, how it manifests now. So they're calling all of these incidences and experiences like community violence, neglect, whatever is going on at home, they compiled it all and called it now complex trauma, which is traumas that happen regularly. Reoccurring traumas that happen on a regular basis. So, these are some of the common effects of complex trauma. So, give me some, they're up there on the board, but tell me what you feel like some of the effects or what you have experienced of effects of what trauma have been, in your opinions, or in your experiences.
Like,
not everybody at once.
Like a bad childhood.
Okay. All right. So that would affect your attachment and relationship issues, right? So when we're trying to come together in intimate relationships or forming or developing friendships or genuine relationships with each other, if we come from a bad childhood, we have a hard time with attaching and relating to other people.
It's chronic as opposed to acute. So over time,
Mm-hmm.
it has that long. It's like a car that doesn't quite work well, but it gets you where you need to go.
Yes.
As opposed to a car that you get it fixed and then it's done.
Yeah.
So it's just not working at 100%.
Awesome. Anybody else?
That's all, yeah. You said any type of trauma, right?
Yeah.
What about seeing another African American get beat?
That is very traumatic. Very traumatic. And what that does, it can alter your actual brain chemistry and the levels of what we call cortisol and other hormones that your body produces when you're at a heightened state. Now, if you're always at a heightened state, this especially happens for pregnant women. If you are a victim of domestic violence and you're pregnant and you're carrying a child, those levels of cortisol and all of those hormones that are produced by your body can affect a child's nervous system, their immune system, many things that is important in a child's development. And behavior. I see this a lot, especially with the young men that I work with, because of the traumas that we've experienced, and we've developed this whole ideal of what manhood should be and how men should react, so we don't communicate like we should, right? So we hold a lot of things in. Instead of talking about it, we hold it. And how we react is when you step on my shoes, or if I'm at the club and you bump me too hard, then I gotta react and give you my manhood, right? A little deeper than pride, brother. A little deeper than pride. But so these are how some of the behaviors. I'm, s-
What do you call it? It ain't pride, or a little bit more than pride.
so we can go into that. So it's not, if a person bumps you and we say excuse me, you can move on. But if I bump you and I say excuse me and you take it to the next level, that's something way deeper than just pride.
So if they bump you and they don't say excuse you, then what? That's intentional.
Again, we don't want to get stuck on that, but that's a whole nother thing of how people are, again, part of the manhood thing, and how we're perceiving ourselves as men, right? And how we don't want to be disrespected as men. I've been in clubs several times and been bumped, and that doesn't mean I'm gonna react and go off. I know how to compose myself as a man. But had I experienced a bunch of different traumas and things that have gone on that affected me in my life, then yeah, I may react very differently than how I react now. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Death of somebody in your family or in your community.
Yes. So that definitely plays a role in in different aspects of the effects of trauma. So that can go to go back to attachment, because I've worked with families. Prior to I was working for Children's Hospital last year for about 3 or 4 years, and then before that, I was working for Catholic Charities, and I was doing family therapy with the victims of homicide. So all of those murders and all that stuff that was happening in Oakland, I was actually going the next day after the young person had passed away. I was at the house doing family therapy with the family, trying to bring it all down. A lot of the younger kids, especially the siblings of the person who had passed away, were affected in a way where they didn't want to connect anymore. They would disassociate. So I would be in the house talking to the family, and they were like in a whole another place. They couldn't really fully partake of what was happening in that moment. So it does affect how young, especially for young people, how they react. When we talked about the reactions and what trauma does and how we react to certain instances, and we were talking about being bumped, right? We were talking about being at the club and being bumped. Well, when we experience several traumas or major traumas in our lives, again, how we react, especially when it happens when you're younger, how we react is going to be a direct connect to the traumas that we've experienced in our lives. Hence, why the majority of the prison population now is becoming more. There are tons of African American and Latino brothers and sisters in prison now. So, which is not really stated that the majority of the fastest growing population in prisons now are women. Okay. Again, something that we already know, African American men make up the majority of both prison and juvenile justice systems. Now, I work with the program that I run right now at McClymonds is a program specifically geared to support African American and Latino males from the recidivism of going back to juvenile hall. Some of the reasons, I'll ask you guys, what are some of the reasons why you think there's this constant movement and cycle going back to juvenile hall for our young people, black and brown young men and women? Anybody? Why do you think that there are? What do you think about the recidivism, the in and out of juvenile hall for black males and Latino males and women as well? Why do you think there's that cycle of people going back to juvenile hall or back to prison?
A of times it's because they don't learn anything, they don't get anything, basically. And it's known fact that if you don't change how you are and who you are, you're prone to repeat the same mistakes. So having not put anything inside of you, then you're basically going to do the same thing that you're comfortable with, that you know. So I speak from experience on dealing with being incarcerated and everything else. A lot of times they don't have anything to look forward to. And it's more so they get in there and it seems to be like almost like being on the streets in a sense, and they get comfortable with that. And that complacency tends to become a thing of reality to them that this is cool. I meet all my partners in here, we do this, we do that, and that's not the case because now it's embedded inside of them that actual being incarcerated is okay, and that's not the case. I feel like this person, older people like myself, are supposed to pass the torch to them and let them know that's not what it's about, young man. You know, I just did 15 years of my life, I can't get back. So my whole thing right now, my dedication and my motivation is to bring the message to the young men and the young women. You know,
Awesome.
Mexican, Hispanic, it don't matter. Because the common thing that is something that I see is that no matter what color you are, you wear the same colors when you're incarcerated.
Yes, sir.
You have no rights, you know. But yeah, I've noticed personally that being inside, that there are some things that have affected me. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, like I said, I hold it real serious because it's a part of my life I can't get back. So therefore, I feel like the 15 they took from me as a 15, I need to get back to my people, my society, my village, my neighborhood. So that's what I do.
I also want to add that it's privilege. Because for certain communities, if you're a troubled young person, you go to a place that's named after a tree, you get group psychology, you're rehabilitated, then you get to go back.
Right.
In other communities, it's like, oh, you did something wrong, put you in the prison industrial complex because we don't want to deal with it.
Right.
Same young person could do the same activity, two completely different outcomes. One could end up going to Harvard because of their privilege, and the other one keeps on going back into the system, making money for whoever's creating the system.
We'll go to the brother here and then the brother here.
Okay, well, I speak for myself.
Please.
I'm troubled. I'm troubled. And I got a lot of stress. You know what I mean? And it's not because of the hand I was dealt. You know what I mean? The hand that I've been dealt, it's been just like OG right here. I've been in prison. You know what I mean? It ain't nothing nice. It ain't nothing to brag about. But I made it out. Now, since I made it out, so at the present time right now, I've been doing all I can just to stay out. You know what I mean? I come to school and I even the roof over my head right now. You know what I mean? Because an organization that's already been set up, you know what I mean, to help me to succeed, left me out in the cold with no money and all my stuff. So to say I came with a complex, yes I did. You know what I mean? But when I came to school, I came to learn. But when I come back out here, I go to survive. Them three different things. You know what I mean? So that complex I got is to move forward, to graduate, and to succeed in life, and to beat the odds. Because right now, I'm going to war the odds. Everything is against me right now.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, excuse me. Yes. I like what the youngster just got you saying. Like, when you get out of prison, they don't have, prison isn't to rehabilitate you. That's just a name. They put you in there to bring you back. That's why they let you out with nothing. But it's up to the individual that gets out to go on with his life, to do whatever he has to do, not to go back, to change the way he thinks, to go to college, to go to learn a trade or something for his future, so he won't go back. Because prison isn't designed to help you. It's designed for the people that's working for the system to make money and have a job and incarcerate you so their family could eat and their kids could go to college.
All right. So the initial question we were asking was, why do we think that there's this cycle of the recidivism of going back to for juveniles rather, or even for those in prison, going back, that whole cycle of going back?
I've never been in prison.
Okay.
I don't know anything about prison. I know a lot of how to get there, but for whatever reason, I've been fortunate enough not to have that experience. And I'm looking at it from an outside perspective. and I see a system that is designed to exploit a certain kind of individual, or from their perspective, a class of individual that isn't very marketable to them unless they're in prison. And it's extremely racist. And I don't hear that being talked about enough. It's division, it's the word, it's divisionary, if that's a word. It's designed like that. And the two classes of people who are subjected to this are those who reproduce. It's like a form of population control. It's a whole lot of elements involved that we don't ordinarily consider because we're not supposed to. You know, it's like we've been trained to believe and not to think. And we're thinking one way where the actuality is completely different. You know, the numbers of people incarcerated pretty much explain that. So I'm like, how do we get to where we can see that the system is in place and explain it to those who are likely to go there based on their actions without disrupting it? Because we can't do anything out in the open if we're really trying to help. Because if we really try to help, then we're taking away money from the state. And the state doesn't like you to take their money. So how is it that we could come together and present something to people who are in line to go there without having too much attention on us?
All right. So I get this, but this is something that's very interesting that I want. I feel like this whole prison topic is definitely bringing up some stuff, and I would love for us to have the time to go deeper into that. But what I do want to point out, this is very interesting, right? And I want to make sure that this is all linked back to trauma because it all starts there. And in my work and working with young men and women, there are more resources for young people who go to juvenile hall. I have young people right now, never been in the system, never been in trouble, never really been in trouble, but could use mental health services, could use housing services, literally all the services available to young people right now in foster care and on probation is amazingly, overwhelmingly available for youth on probation and youth in juvenile hall. So what I'm seeing now is that early on, there's a system that is being designed to, for instance, I'll give you an example. I have some young people right now that I work with. A lot of them feel like they come from traumatic backgrounds. Parents, did their thing and abusive, all of that stuff. Their way of thinking now is, let me go now that I've done my dirt, let me continue to do that because at 18, I can get my own apartment. I can get money if I enroll in college, I can get me a little of this. So now it's a new way of thinking to survive now. But now you have this record. You have things that are going to continue to hold you back. So it's a continuous cycle, and it's starting at a very, very young age. So when we talk about education, a lot of our young people now, everybody's talking about ADHD, ADD, and things like that, right? So back to the focus on education. So it's extremely important because, again, working at a high school, which is 98% African American, our kids are blowing out of class. Our kids are unable to sit in class, unable to really follow instruction. A lot of us, and it's interesting because of the area that I work in West Oakland. It's key to know that West Oakland was one of the first, when crack was introduced into the Bay Area and into Oakland, it was primarily pushed into West Oakland. So these are the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of those people who were in that area where crack was really pumped heavily into that community. So now we're starting to see all these diagnoses of ADHD, ADD. Kids love to say, I'm bipolar. Why are you bipolar? Because I get mad sometimes. But that's what it's become now. Everything has become an industry. Everything has become an industry, and in that industry, they get traumatized. You have mental health clinicians, and I've worked with them, worked right along with them, who come in and give you a diagnosis. Some of us we have to give you a diagnosis within 24 to 48 hours. How can you put a label on somebody's life after having literally 1 hour conversation with them? Our kids take that in. And we have people who are not of color who come into these communities and do not realize the circumstances under which some of our young people have endured. But yet, if they come with the textbook display of what the DSM and other books say is the problem, that's what we're gonna give you. That carries on with you forever. It's on your medical insurance. And so now our kids take that in. So, to bring it back to education, because of the various traumas and things that go on in our young people's lives, it's hard for them to be in class. It's hard in a sense that when you are, we were talking about being bumped in the club and all of that. If you're sitting in the class and you have somebody literally, I suggest that you guys take a tour of some of the high schools, especially like Castlemont and McClimats. Some of the teachers are literally yelling, not because the kids are, yes, some of them are talking, but literally yelling. The approach, how you get close onto some of our kids. If you've been traumatized, you can't have somebody just jump in your face like that. You can't have somebody screaming at you. That can trigger you. And some of our kids are triggered by that regularly. So, what do we have in place for them? Yeah, we do have mental health services for some, but if you don't have Medi-Cal, you can't take part in mental health treatment. Can't see you. So, why are a lot of our young people going back? There is this dream that they have, right? If I've been in poverty all of my life, the one way I want to get out, I want to be rich, I want to play basketball, I want to rap, I want to do everything that's going to give me quick success. Huh? We have several who are really dreaming about that, and the great thing is that they work hard at it, right? They work hard on the basketball field, on the basketball court. They work hard on the football court. But the fact of the matter of how many percentage of our young men are going to the NFL or NBA? Realistically, very few. So the dream of success for our young people is real, right? They want to get out of poverty by any means necessary. So this whole thing of success and instant gratification for our young people, it's a very real and what I consider a sickness. Like when I think about what capitalism has done especially for black youth. I was watching the BET Honor Awards last night, and what's his face? Crazy one. Kanye West was talking about it's not about the riches. It's not about the money. Yet he has diamond encrusted teeth.
Yes.
But when our young people see this is what they think that the American dream is. And it is, right? I would love to have Kanye's money, but I would never want to have to give up myself the way Kanye has given of himself. So, again, tying it back to trauma, our young people right now are willing to give whatever to give the illusion of success. And a lot of the young men that I work with now in the group home and at the high school, it's a means of whatever they did, whether it be stealing or whatever, it all tied back to the means of the illusion of looking successful. So the pressure of living the American dream and all of the images and things that are portrayed that our young people are seeing is literally causing a devastating impact on our young people and our community. So, with that being said, questions, thoughts, concerns?
I guess it's more of a statement. I guess it's more of a statement, and I didn't see like that, kind of late. So, but what I heard a little bit about like trauma, and in the high schools and working with men of color, specifically black men of color, and being from the hood and having parents who are drug addicts or that you want to be successful, and so you're out there robbing or selling dope or whatever you have to do to get ahead. What does that look like when you have some brothers here who go to college but still live in that life, and then they here at the school with this trauma, with these traumas, and they don't even know about these traumas. They don't know about these triggers. And as a counselor, this is what I work with this population, a lot of these students, and I am from the same neighborhoods. I am from Oakland. I went to Castlemont. I had parents who was on drugs, all that other stuff. I had uncles who were pimps and in jail for life for murder and all that stuff. So I understand that experience because I lived it and still live it. You know what I mean? That's my family. So, but it's hard, because it's not many of us here who works here at the college who are working with these students, and they have these triggers. And so now you have these students in the classes, and instructors just really doing their job. They may ask the student a simple question or just give them simple instructions, but the student feels played, or you're trying to play me. You don't know who I am. You don't know my reputation. You don't know where I'm from. And because of that, this is what I would do. And so what does that look like? Or how can we better help reach out to our brothers to be successful in college and working through that trauma, those traumas, and making them aware of those traumas.
And I think this is the beautiful opportunity for places like Alameda and Laney and Merritt, is because it can be the training ground for a lot of young men and women of color. Because we had about 4 kids last year who graduated from Mac, went on to amazing 4-year universities, and the next semester they were back home because they couldn't change the street life and that whole mentality to this is a whole nother world when you in Purdue and you the only black person there and don't know nothing about Purdue, right? So a lot of our kids had to come back home. So places like Alameda can be the training ground to groom young men and women of color to be able to go out and get what they need from the 4-year university. So it is a beautiful opportunity for us to start having programs like the Brotherhood. I would love to see a sisterhood program that really grooms and develops our young people to be able to handle the system of college, because that in itself is a whole nother system compared to, along with many of the other systems that we have to deal with.
I wanted to chime in on what you're saying. Actually,
We got you next, brother.
Actually, what Open Gate is attempting, What Open Gate is attempting to do is implement a club called the Young Kings and Queens of the Round Table, and that's what it's going to consist of. An opportunity for them to sit down and discuss current topics, things that they're dealing with, their neighborhoods, their struggles, hurts, habits, hang-ups, whatever it is, within a rap group form, to where they don't have to worry about, somebody monitoring what they're saying, because we're dealing with young adults. We're dealing with our future. If we don't give it to them the way that they need it, then they're going to go back to the same things that they're used to. I feel like this, again, I said this earlier, that as an older gentleman, it's my responsibility to pass the torch of knowledge to these young men and these young women. In order for that to take place, it has to start somewhere.
Yes, sir.
I feel it starts with me first, by checking and examining myself and being able to say the things that I know that these young men need to hear and these young women need to hear. In essence, telling them who you are. Because what these people say and what the street says is not who you are. But you have so deep embedded into you that that's who you believe that you are. It's time people wake up and understand that that's not who you are. What they say does not dictate or determine who you are or who you can become. Because that's old stuff. You have to try to help them, give them forms where they can rid themselves of that stuff. My young brother said that he's homeless. I'm the same way. But it doesn't stop, distract, or deter me from doing what it is that I know I have to do. And I'm staying focused every day. It's not an easy task, but I can only imagine at my age what these younger people are dealing with. no parents at home, having to get out there and hustle and do whatever they got to do to make ends meet, and still come to school, trying to feed themselves. And a lot of young people are having kids, they have to feed them kids, so they're basically doing whatever it is that they have to do
Yes, sir.
to survive, to stay alive.
Yes, sir.
So to be able to create something, and at the same time they're learning something, how to become a king and a queen, and what their definition of it is, and how to show them the points and the areas where they need to work on. And yeah, you're right. A lot of these young people are angry and they're mad because they've been dealt some treacherous stuff that they had to deal with.
Yes, sir.
They're being pushed to be adults at an early age.
Yes, sir.
And it's not fair to them, you know. So they're being robbed of a lot of things, and I feel like this group will help them kind of like, you know, deal with a lot of these issues. And the thing about it is it's multicultural, cross-racial. So the things that you don't know, the people that you don't know who might have the answers to some of the things that you're going through. If you think your problem is worse, here's somebody who just came from being over in Iraq somewhere, who barely made it over here, but didn't let that distract you. I just wanted to share.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I see it. I believe what he's saying. You know, some people are kings, you know what I mean? But I don't believe in my heart kings are born. I believe they are raised. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of stuff to know the names. You know what I mean? To be a king, you can actually make good decisions for your people. You know what I mean? And for as success, it's coming in many ways, many forms. You know what I mean? But it's trueness to every form of success. And as far as where we come from, we not reaching, you know what I mean, the true stuff that we talk about. You know what I mean, as far as how to make it, which way to look, how to have a productive day, how to think of a productive day, how to plan out a productive day. You know what I mean? That doesn't reach where you're talking about. So when you say disruption, or and you say mental issues, you talking about stuff that they're not getting fed right. So who really has a problem? You know what I mean? The baby only gonna grow as much as you feed. You know what I mean? We not feeding our kids out here. So all these young youths, we got one right here. Javante, he go to school, he can sit in, he know to take directions and everything. Matter of fact, he's in every school system out there on the street right now. You know what I mean? So he's young. He's the person that you talk about. But he's the representative for us young people. Right here. All you. Looking at Charles.
Yes, sir. Yes,
You know what I mean?
sir.
So, hold on.
Okay, how y'all doing? Okay, let's go way back to where we was talking about the prison industrial system. Why these young people steady going back to jail? Why they won't learn how to just evolve and grow up to be men? Because they're fighting against a system that was not meant for them to succeed in the first place. And they're not teaching them that in these schools. That's why when they get out of these schools, they go to jail, they go to prison. And these prisons is teaching them more than these schools is. Come on now, GED classes, health mental classes, and all this in prisons and county jails. Not in our elementary, middles, and high schools. Okay, but that's only that problem. The next problem is when they do get back out of jail, y'all say it's based on the individual to build himself back up and get back into society. No, society don't want him back. So then in one way for him to get back into that society is for us to bring him back into the society. We must bring him back because we know the circumstances that he was dealt with. So we bring him back. Everybody, my man, my fellow man right here, this guy right here, my man right here. We all have support that got us where we are today. And even I'm pretty sure Jamar, you said you grew up in Castlemont, your family was in the 80s and all that. Were you the way you got your position right now was by the support of your peers. And we cannot forget about the support of our peers. That's what we sitting here forgetting about right now. That is the solution to our problem. How we gonna get our young people there? How we gonna guide them there? We guide them ourselves. We build them ourselves.
Come on, sir.
You see what I'm saying?
Speak truth.
Who's next?
Speak truth, young man.
The brother, we were supposed to go to the sister here, and then we go to the brother in the back.
I'm definitely not going to be as dynamic as you were. But my question is, as community members, how we're supporting our people coming back, are we providing the mindfulness, all the different techniques, just so that when we react to situations, we don't jump on somebody who just scuffed my shoes in the club, right? That we have the tools within ourselves to check ourselves, so that this way we're like, okay, let it go. And we practice that with each other and for each other, so this way we can develop the skills that we need in order to maintain whoever it is that we need to be strong and to continue to develop and not fall into the trap of getting into the system.
Thank you.
We need to be mindful and check each other on that and teach each other on that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Brother in the back.
I think the problem is a little bit more complex than people think it is. In order to change, you have to know how to change.
Mm-hmm.
I was at a program about a month ago, and we was talking to some youngsters that just got out of prison and going back and forth to jail. And he was talking about their parole officer. The parole officer did this. They blaming someone else for what they do. I'm smoking, he's smoking weed. My parole officer violated me. It's things like that. They have to know. And one thing that came out of that youngster's mouth that really hit the point. I want to change, but I don't know how to change. And you need programs because you talk about the trauma. They have to understand the trauma, what caused that trauma, and how to deal with that trauma in order to go on with their lives, because they have resentment in their lives. In order to go on with their lives, they have to get rid of that resentment. In order to get rid of that resentment, they must know how to get rid of that resentment. They need programs like that for these youngsters to explain to them and help them to cope with life and how it was dealt to them to get over that hump. And then it's easier for them because they understand themselves more. It's easier that way. They need those type of programs. I don't think the colleges have those type of programs, but you as what you do, you should know more about that than I do.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go to the brother here and then back to you.
Okay,
We got, just to keep in mind, I want to be mindful of time. We got about 10 minutes, so.
I'm in agreement with what everybody has said, but I'm looking at certain aspects of being collective that haven't been brought up, because we're all individuals. We all think in terms of ourselves because we're not accustomed to having a large group to support us. So how could a transformational progression occur if we haven't had some type of collective instilled within us for us to understand? How could we encourage just one individual? You know, I'm trying to envision a situation where everybody who has to succumb to these circumstances are the same individual. How do we communicate to them all with having all as one in mind? And you know, looking at like music, everything we experience is pretty much designed to keep us separated, is to keep us apart. And how do we change the mind state of someone that doesn't understand that change is a possibility? You know, how do we get into that? How long is this process actually going to take place? Because it's not anything that can happen overnight. And there's a lot of sensationalism. There's a lot of situations designed to get us to think hopefully and be okay with this one moment, but then after everybody leaves, we go back to the same shit we left. You know, and it's like, how is that going to be addressed? Because, I mean, I've been seeing stuff for years, and I'm like, what's going to work? You know, we start this way, but we forget about this. You know, the focus is on this, but historically, things repeat themselves. And this is just a reproduction of something else. So how is it that something is something that will be created that will actually stick? You know, that's, I mean, I'm down for that. You know, what's going to stick?
We'll go to.
Speaking as a Muslim American and from my own personal experience, I think that what's really not that strong and effective out there is the outreach, is the awareness. People learning about these resources and programs that they're available to help us for those who are struggling. Me personally, I didn't have the support. I had to be out there on my own. I went in and out of the system. I come from a cultural background that's really, really strict. So for me, it's more like having that guidance, that strong support system, so you can know, hey, this is not the end of the world. Things will change.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that's really what's needed. So my motivation is I didn't want to be in that position. I didn't want to be taught. I had to motivate myself and push myself. I was the first woman in my family to graduate from high school because I said, hey, I'm not going to be like everyone else. I know there's support out there. I think getting involved in the community, knocking on doors, door to door, and saying, hey, we're here for you. I think that's really what's needed.
Shay, thank you. We'll go to the brother here.
Genuineness. A lot of these programs I done dealt with are not genuine. You know what I mean? So the care and the help that they're talking about providing is actually just a paycheck. You know what I mean? So I got nothing out of it. I still continue to move on. You know what I mean? But at the same time, if we're gonna talk about programs, it's talking about having genuine people come to genuine programs to care for them. That's what it boils down to. If you want people to succeed, you have to be genuine in what you do. If you're here to care for somebody, care for them how you're supposed to be cared for. You know what I mean? That speculation and prejudging, that doesn't get us nowhere. I mean, if you want us to change the way we think, we gotta change the way our thinking is, for both sides.
Amen. Now we're going to sing another song really quickly here. It's called Total Praise. And it's a very nice song and really has a beautiful message. So I encourage you to please make sure you listen to the message. Here we go.
I will live. the moment I've been waiting on. And my soul is overflowing with anxieties and expectations. I'm full of desire. It just seems so real. It's right there. Just want to reach out and touch it before it all disappears. Sometimes it feels like everything is passing me by. Every now and then it feels like my ship has gone to sail away. But I gotta be strong, gotta hold on, it won't be too long. Now the tide is coming near, I see the wind flowing out there on the ocean. I know my ship is coming in, just past the horizon, and right where the sky ends. 'Cause out there on the ocean, I know my ship is coming in. So don't leave me hanging, been waiting too long. But this moment, my ship has finally come. I will travel to the seven seas, and I will even go wherever the wind blows me. I'll do anything to find my destiny. It's like fighting with gravity, and it's bringing me down. If this world is really round, then tell me how. The moment you come around, now. I see the waves flowing. It's coming in, baby. 'Cause out there on the ocean, I know my ship is coming in. So don't leave me hanging, been waiting too long. But this moment, my ship has finally come. Finally around, hey, around. I said finally, baby. Around. Finally come around, baby. Said finally you come around. Now the time is coming near. Yeah, babe, out there on the ocean,